First of all, I feel like I'm at home even though I've never been to this church before, partly because I love your pastors. They're a little crazy because anybody who says, yeah, let's go start a church, you're a little crazy. But if God says to do it, then you're crazy not to. But the other reason I feel like I'm at home here is because I was born in Omaha. Like, never lived a day of my life in Omaha, but I was born in Omaha. Parents were living in Council Bluffs, and I guess back 57 years ago, they didn't really have hospitals in Iowa. I don't know. So they came over to across the bridge, and this is where I started. So I feel like I've always been, I'm a Nebraskan, but, you know. So I tried the whole Cornhusker thing, and then I moved to Louisiana for 30 years, and it's really hard to stay Cornhusker when LSU's everywhere. And so our great gift to you guys has been a bunch of good coaches that we shared with you. So I kind of started not liking the Huskers, but anyway, doesn't matter. Then we just spent 5 years living in California. And so, you know, there it's like everybody's, you know, just this big around, and not everybody, but because I was there and I'm not. And so, you know, they're like offering wheat germ shakes, and, you know, there's no ice cream in that. So I'm like, I love this church. You're like, ice cream. We're going to do treats after the women's thing. I'm like, this is, and like next week, like, hey, I'd be a first timer next week again. I mean, y'all been here 6 years, whatever. Come, you a first timer, because you get the treats. You get to hang out with cool people and get treats. Story of my life. I really do. I really appreciate your pastors. They have been a source of encouragement to me that they don't even know it in a lot of the ways. And I was telling somebody earlier, I was telling you guys, your kids, what they do for the church is not just Ralston. It's not just Nebraska. Like, you're part of Next Level Network, and I know I've been around the guys that are in the couples that are in that group of pastors who encourage each other. It's a little scary because I thought, you know, if I'd said something about, like, you know, I don't know if I like the name Matt Prose. Like, what's a Matt, you know? And I'm like, I don't know if I said something like that, just even joking, I think the other 11, 12 guys in that group would just beat me down. Like, just jump me and just, you know, yeah, they were pastors, but you said something about one of our boys, and just, So the impact that you're having through that network, because he's that way for some of them. You know, Christy would beat you down for Sarah Keller. Like, you know, just like say something about Sarah Keller, Christy coming after. A lot of pastors don't have that. And maybe, you know, I know we're talking about pastors, and, you know, none of you, I don't think, are pastors, but it is something when you're doing life alone, it's really hard. When you're doing something together with others who understand it, it's great. And you guys are not just recipients of that, but you are givers in that. And I travel the country. We just drove over yesterday from Peoria via Waterloo, via Eagle Grove, Iowa, and then Ankeny, and then over here, and visiting pastors. And to hear, as I do my travels, there are so many times it comes up, oh yeah, Matt, we're part of this Next Level group together. Or, yeah, Matt and Christy called and they encouraged us. Or one thing that's really cool is since you guys launched, part of your missions giving, you know, you talked about in your city, in your state, your country, and around the world. Well, in the country, you guys have helped plant 250 churches. You know, if you knew that. Every time you put something in the offering here, part of that, a little piece of that, maybe a big piece sometimes, some of that goes to help another church planting couple to launch churches. 250 of them. That's amazing. And that's like, I don't know, the total $40,000, $50,000 you guys have given. You're like, wow, we could have used that for, you know, whatever. But no, you invested in others, and that's where the kingdom impact is so tremendous. And like he said, I get to lead something my parents started 31 years ago, like last month, 31 years. And I get to lead it now, and it's such a blessing because the opportunity, my parents started this with the dream to feed 300 or 400 kids and tell them about Jesus. That was the big dream, and it was a big dream. At their point in their lives, they just resigned a role in a big ministry, and they're like, what do we do? And they were in West Des Moines, where my mom's family was. They were living in my uncle's basement, and just God laid it on their hearts. Hey, just feed kids, because they'd been doing missions my whole life. So that was the thing. Dad and Mom loved working with kids. They said, man, if we could just feed 300 or 400 kids and tell them about Jesus. So they took their credit cards and they started Children's Cup. Moved it up to Eagle Grove after they figured out this is actually going to work after a couple of years. And now it has grown to there's about 16,000 kids that we're doing that with, feeding them and telling them about Jesus. And about 4,000 of those kids are actually in our program where we're not just giving them humanitarian aid. That's great. That's tremendous. Mom and Dad were happy to do that, but they always wanted to bring Jesus into it. Great. Just don't want to save a kid from starvation, and then they still go to hell. We want to give them Jesus. So we do that. But then now, as we work with these communities, we're in 6 countries. There's 61 centers called care points that we work in, and the kids come anywhere from 50 kids to a couple hundred kids at one of these centers. But those kids are in a program where they are not just receiving medical attention, receiving after-school tutoring, receiving food, receiving just a safe place to be and play on a playground. It's not just that. We're actually, I think this is really important to it everywhere, but what we're doing with the kids is we're challenging them, giving them the dignity of learning that God can use them, that he has a dream for their lives, that he can do something, that they matter. There's a point to their lives. I asked one little girl, she'd just come to a care point. It may have been her first day. She's about 10 years old. I asked her, I said, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she understood English. No problem there. She just looked at me blank, like never thought about growing up. A lot of these kids, they come to us because they're looking for food. They're trying to figure it out. How do I survive? So her thought had never crossed that. Talked to another kid same day. This kid had been there, I don't know, a couple of years maybe. And I asked him, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, well, I want to be he said, this was his words. He said, if I grow up, I want to be a teacher. I was like, that's awesome, a teacher. Wow, that's great. I love teachers. I had a lot of them. And it dawned on me. I was like, hold up. You just said, if I grow up. I was like, okay, so there's a little bit of hope settling in, but it's not all the way there yet. But there's something. Enough that he's thought about, this is what I want to do. And that's where call it our vision statement. I don't know if technically, if you're a business leader, it might not be the right way to do it, but this is what we call our vision statement. It's giving hope, inspiring dreams, and changing worlds. Give those kids hope. It looks like a meal, and there's no hope. The hopelessness is rampant, whether it's Africa or Latin America, the 2 regions we work in. Hopelessness is the deal. Easy thing about that, in the definition of the word, you can find the cure. It's hope. My dad loved to say it. Hope's name is Jesus. So we give them Jesus, but sometimes you got to start with a meal so they can hear the word Jesus. Once that takes root, then the seeds of hope start to grow, and they realize, oh, maybe I can do something. And those dreams start to be inspired. And we work with them with those dreams. And sometimes the funnest part is not, oh, this kid wants to be a teacher, because that's cool. Any teachers in here? Yeah? Teachers are great. Like, thank God for teachers. Kids want to grow up and be teachers, doctors. They come up with all these great. This funny thing in Eswatini, a little tiny country in Africa, half of them want to be pilots. I'm like, good on you, but I mean, why? There's so many other things. But any pilots in here, I love you. Thank you for your services. But as the dreams settle in, we start to remind them, hey, God has a dream for your life. And it's really way better than anything you could come up with. Ephesians 3:20 makes that real clear. I always took that verse that, now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or imagine. I always took that to mean, man, I better dream big. Like I can dream as big as I want and God's going to blow it away. Then I was like, lately, I'm 57, so later here in life, I'm starting to think, maybe I just let the dreaming be up to God. And I just want to tune into what he's got, because I can't dream big enough. So I'm just going to go put a limit on what he wants to do. So we teach those kids, and here's the cool thing. I grew up in the Philippines and in Belgium. My parents were missionaries, and missions in that time was a lot of missionary going and doing work. Great. Needed to happen. Still needs to happen. But now we're seeing where it's like there's so much more that can be done by the kids that grow up, by the nationals, by the people that live in Eswatini or in Mexico or in Honduras. If we can help these kids grow up to change their world from the inside out, they don't get kicked out when COVID happens. All of our missionaries got booted out of the countries we were in, so we had to go all nationals. And man, I'm telling you what, they're amazing. We had a kid walk into a care point my wife was just there a couple weeks ago. And Mexico, the big challenge is drugs, it's cartel. I mean, if you watch any of the TV shows that are pseudo-reality, I asked them, I said, some of these shows, I named a few of them, they're like, yeah, that's pretty real, that's pretty straight up. And it's hard, it's big, and it's a big, bad, ugly deal. And the sad thing is the kids, when you're about 11, 12 years old, you kind of hit this crossroads. Now it's time. You're going to go with the gangs, or you're going to try to figure out something else, and there's nothing else. Well, so that's where we're coming in. We're like, hey, we're going to give something else. One of those kids that's at the care point, all his family, his uncles, his brothers, had a brother lived at home involved in cartel. And he was at the care point and got word that his brother had been shot in the house. Like it was an adult brother, way older brother, but he got shot, killed in the house. Kid had to go home and help clean up. This is that kid's life. And I'm just like, this is the reality. All these kids, it's just like, it's the way life is. Dad, uncle, grandpa, everybody, they're all in the cartel. So what am I going to do with my life? I mean, they see it, they know it's painful, but there's no choice. So we give them that choice. And the cool thing with that, talking about changing the world from the inside out, we had one kid that same care point, different kid. He walks into the care point when my wife was there, and he's like, I don't know, he's probably 13, 14 years old, and he's been there a while. He walks in and sees everybody. He's like, you know what? I'm the next leader of this care point. I thought, yes. I don't know if he actually is the guy, but I'm like, that's the dreams we want to see. Not that we keep them all in the Children's Cup organization. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. We have some the kids that grew up in a care point, and they're on our staff. They're changing the world from the inside out. My prayer is that out of these care points we've got, that those 4,000 kids that are in our program, really that all 16,000 of those kids we get to serve, that they're going to grow up to be mayors, they're going to grow up to be presidents, they're going to grow up to be business leaders, they're going to start businesses that change the economy of their community, they're going to be pastors, they're going to be missionaries. That's in there. And when you look at these, I go to a care point, there's 50 kids or 100 kids running around playing, I'm thinking, maybe there's a future football star, or just a guy or just a woman who grows up to be a great mom and wife. That loves Jesus, serves in their local church. I'm like, this, and that's not just. I said just in front of him. I shouldn't have said that because it's not just. It's right. These are good things. Football star, or I'm taking care of my kids, I'm in. If you're loving Jesus and you're doing it because that's what he's called you to do. So that's my thing. And so it really kind of leads into what I want to talk about. Let me tell you real quick. The way we do this, you guys give as Glow Church. Pastor Matt mentioned it. And it's an amazing blessing, especially thinking of the story of your church and how, like, we met before you launched, went out to eat, and I was hearing your dream. I'm thinking this is great. And I sat and I thought, I can't wait to see what God does with this. I'm still in that I can't wait to see what God does with it, but I'm also look what God's already done with this. Look what he's doing. You guys has reached 250 churches helped plant. You've helped plant. You're also giving to Children's Cup. So everything we've done in the last year, you guys have a part of that. And it's everything that God has done through Children's Cup, you have a piece of. And so the cool thing is now, as we move forward, one of the things is we've kind of focused on, I don't know if we've zeroed in on this or not, but there's a community in Mexico called Las Viñas. And it's in central Mexico, a city called Aguascalientes. Anybody been to Mexico before? All right, well, we're going to change that. But but it's one of those cities where, the cartel is nasty. We do trips where you're safe. We don't take unnecessary risks. So don't have to worry about that part. But my dad used to tell people all the time, the safest place to be is in the center of God's will. So if God wants you there, then being in the middle of Ukraine is the best place, safest place for you to be. So don't worry about that part. But that Las Vegas community is one of those communities where the kids live in a drug world, in a gang world. But the kids are still kids. You go there. I remember specifically that care point. They've got a basketball court on the back of it. It's like a government community center that we lease out. We own it. Not own it, but it's ours all the time. But so the big basketball court. So I went out there. I'm 57, but I still got an 18-year-old mind when it comes to basketball. My body reminded me afterwards that I'm not 18 anymore. But I started, doing basketball drills with them and playing. These kids, in the brokenness of their lives is real. Very, 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 very real. But they're still kids that are entertained by spinning a basketball on your finger or teaching them how to do a layup or holding them up to dunk the basketball. They're kids. And that's one of the funnest things about it is you can tap into that joy and let them know that, hey, that can be the story of your life. There's joy underneath all. I can preach what I preach to them all the time. But actually, I'm going to give you something I think is our message with them. But the idea, we have a table out there. If you want to do this, your church is doing a lot as a whole. There is another layer of connection that you can do. Don't have to. I'm not here to pressure you or anything like that. But we like the connection of friendship. We don't do child sponsorship. We do friendship. And it is where you as a church are connected with this community. And so we want to do things to try to relationally tie you guys as a church to that community. So one of the things we do is we invite you to be friends. And to be friends meaning what? Okay, friendship is relationship. We do have, there's a financial part of it. It's $44 a month it costs to send one kid through the program. So we just say, hey, if you help with sending one kid through the program, then personally we want to try to give the kids an idea who you are. So what we do is we have these cards out here on the thing, the Sharpies out there. You can write your name on there. My favorite hobby is, mine would be eating. You could put whatever you want, even if it's not true. Mine would be, I could put on there, my favorite hobby is working out, and they just laugh. But and then take a picture. We'll take a picture here. You can take it yourself later, whatever, and then send it to us, and we will post that picture up at the care point, like on a bulletin board. These are our friends. And it's really cool because they start meeting. Then when you do a trip and you go meet the kids, they're like, oh, yeah, I know that one. You know, that one likes to work out. You know? And so you start to know each other. Then we have a community page where everybody that's doing this can be on this page, like a Facebook page, but it's private to that community and your community. So you can keep up with the kids. You see the stories of their lives. Hey, this kid got saved. These 3 kids got baptized in church today. And you guys can be like, hey, we're having this women's event. Please pray for us. And they'll pray. Those kids will send a prayer back. It's amazing. It's a great thing. If you do that, then we've got, of course, because there's candy in here. It's a little party favor bag. If you do the friendship thing today, you get that. And if you just want to know more about Children's Cup as a whole, we've got a website, obviously, but this is a Frisbee. It's got a bunch of information on it about Children's Cup in general. So you get an idea of what it is we do. I've kind of skimmed over it, and I've talked way too long because I have other things I want to tell you. But I'll be out there if you have questions. Would love to talk to you about that. The message today, though, that I've got is really the same message we give the kids, and it's that God has a purpose for your life, which is Donkey Mission. What's the point? There's a point to your life. There is a point to it. So, and I'm pretty sure this is something you sent me in a text. I wrote it in my notes as soon as you sent it to me. So I'm going to give you credit. If it isn't you, then just... But it says, every day that we live here on earth while we head towards eternity with Jesus is a day he's not just having us wait to join him there, but he has a purpose for us being there. He has a purpose for us being here. Being here. Finding that purpose is the key to living a fulfilled life. Is that you? Okay, good. Yeah. It is the key. I mean, what's the point? I mean, you've ever played or your kids play Clash of Clans? Y'all know the video game, the little phone game? It's the biggest act of futility ever. It's this game where you build up resources, and then you build this fort, or we call it whatever. You build your base. And so you build up your armies and all this stuff. And then you go attack another person's base, and you get resources from them so that you can come back and build up your base. You build up your base, then you go attack them, and you get more resources so you can build your base. There's no end. You don't win a prize. You get little stars, great. But there's just no, like, I play Mario Kart, and the prize is I crushed my boys playing Mario Kart with them. This game, it goes nowhere, and you're just obsessed. I've got to do this so I can attack and have more, so I can get more, so I can attack more. That's what I feel like life sometimes is like for us. Like, I got a better job, so I make more money, so I can have a better place to live, so that I can sleep better, so I can do a better work, so I can get a better job. So it's just... And it's easy. That's why depression, I think, is such a real thing in our world today, is people just waking up to the idea, hey, where's this really going? What's the point? Why am I even here? Do I actually matter? And is there anything more than just living, dying, paying taxes? Sorry, that's kind of fresh for a lot of us. How many of you just filed for an extension, right? We all do that, right? How do you make sense of all this? And I think it's one easy word. And it's others. It's others. Jesus said he didn't come to be served, but to serve. Mark 10:45. It wasn't about his comfort or proving his value or building his ego. He didn't have any of those issues. He was just here for others. Life was about others. And to me, this is the key point to living life on point, or key to living life on point. What you do for others is what matters most. So, logical question then. What are my others? Who are my others? Which of my others should I focus on, and how do I live about others? That's real practical, right? I'm not the shouting preacher. I'm not the wave a towel and sweat and all that. I'm sweating because I'm fat, but But this is, I'm not, so whatever. I'm not apologizing for that. It's just the way God made me. I'm gonna talk. But Luke 15 has a lot of stories about lost things. 3 stories. And one we all know, the Good Samaritan. The guy actually asked Jesus, who's my neighbor? And so Jesus answered with, let me tell you about the Good Samaritan. And sorry, that's not Luke 15 at all. That was like, I'm sleepy. What? Scratch that. Whole different point there. But this is a Good Samaritan story. We know the story. If you don't, come out to the table, I'll share it. It's an amazing story of Jesus answering the question to a guy, who's my neighbor? And it was this guy got hurt, or robbed, and left in the ditch to die by the thieves. And then people pass by, and 2 people walk by him and blow him off. Don't see him as their neighbor or anybody they should care about. And then this other guy comes along, and he's a Samaritan. Shouldn't have cared about this guy, but he did. He took care of him. And that's how Jesus answered the question. So to me, your others, it's not that, Matt Prose is not an other for me. It's just that I need to widen that out. That's easy. I like Matt. I like hanging out. I do this all day, hang out with Matt Prose. But that's not the limit of my others. Sometimes the others are people that don't look like you. You don't naturally like. They're Lakers fans, not Warriors fans. Right? I mean, yeah, you got it. Somebody's watching in LA that hates me right now, but whatever. LeBron thinks he's the greatest of all. Wow. Anyway, don't get me started. The rich, the poor, the friendly, the rude, the good driver, the bad driver, the person doesn't even know that they're driving, the ones who don't look like you, the ones who do look like you, the ones who vote like you do, and the ones who don't. That's your others. Nobody is, and here's the thing, I said a lot of things, like there's some kind of deal out there now where you're not supposed to use the word the, like the poor, the rich, not supposed to do that. It's because it's labeling people. And here's the deal. We're going to have labels on us, but I'm not the label that you put on me. I may be part of what I am. Tall, old, white dude. Yeah, that's me. I'm a tall, old, white dude. Didn't say fat, but I am. That's not my label. But nobody is just the label. Nobody is just what they appear. I mean, I could look at you two and be like, I can put some labels on you, like great leaders, great friends, willing to sacrifice a lot to obey God, willing to put it all on the table. So I can put all those labels on you. But there's a lot more to you than that. A lot of things I don't know about you. That's true with everybody. I don't care who you are. I've been married to my wife now. It'll be 35 years in August. Thank God she's blind. I'm kidding. Thank God she's nice. Thank God she's patient. But I still don't know everything about her. That's part of why we're still married 35 years later. I'm still curious, like, sometimes it comes like, what in the world? That's beautiful. Sometimes it's, what in the world? But I don't say it that way. It's that there's more to people. The others around you, is that a countdown clock that's at 0? Okay, good. I'm just checking. I was like, wow. Nobody is, you don't know everything about everybody. You just got to admit it. When my dad died, like 11 years ago, and I've not really experienced having close loved ones die before that, and I'm driving down the road like a couple days later, just driving. It's a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'm doing like 35. People lined up, a 2-lane road, of course, lined up behind me. I'm like, I do not care. My mind was somewhere else. I was just like, you just have a little grace. I couldn't say this. Have a little grace. My dad just died, Now I'm still the driver, though, behind somebody who's driving 35 and a 55, and I'm like, get out, go, because I don't know what's going on in their world. And when I'm doing well emotionally, I'm reminding myself I don't know what's going on in their world. Because there's something going on maybe something going on I don't know. I think my prayer, the healthier I am, the more I'm praying this, maybe the other way around. The more I'm praying this, the healthier I am. Ask God to open your eyes to others. Just help you see them. I don't think there's probably very many of us who, at least consciously, are seeing somebody who's hurting and doing the Good Samaritan thing, and like the other 2 guys in the Good Samaritan, turn your eyes so you don't see it. I think most of us, our problem is we just don't notice. Busy doing our thing. Didn't happen to see that guy in the ditch. And maybe it's not obvious that they're in the ditch. That's why I said like the rich and the poor. Sometimes you think, man, Elon Musk, he ain't got no problem. Let me tell you, he's got some problems. Whatever. Pick a wealthy person in your community. You think, well, I don't need to help them. I need to go help this person. You just don't see the need they have, maybe. So I'm asking, God, show me the need that people have. I don't care if they're poor or rich. I don't care if they're healthy or frail. I just want to see, God, what needs do you need me to see? What people do you need me to see? And I think that's what Jesus specializes in. It's amazing the opportunities to serve others will come your way when you simply start asking God to show them to you. Jesus spent so much time going out of his way to encounter people that needed to be seen. One was the big festival in John chapter 5. I did check this one. I was not off. John chapter 5, at the beginning of the chapter, Jesus is going to this big Holy Days festival, and everybody's gathering, religious festival. They're gathering in the big courtyard. Everybody, the family is art conference. It's everybody doing the let's get together and let's be holy. That's what they were doing. Well, on the side is this pool, and all the sick and lame are just hanging out there because that's what they do all the time. They don't need a conference to get together. They're just sick and lame, and they're hanging out in this area. So what does Jesus do? He didn't go over there to the big thing. Not that that's bad. I mean, I came back from an art conference this week. If I fall down, it's because my legs are numb from standing up all week. But it's, there's this opportunity for Jesus to be celebrated and market himself and all that. He's just like, no, I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to go over here. He was drawn to the poor and the hurting, the sick. And what did he do? He healed one of them. That's one thing when I get to heaven, I'll be like, Jesus, there's a lot of other ones you stepped over to get to that one guy. I don't understand. But he did it, and he knew where he was going. Second example, that was the big crowd in the house. Jesus teaching, and there's like people everywhere in this house. Like there's no room inside. People looking in the windows. You got 4 friends who bring in their paralyzed friend with them to Jesus because they're like, maybe Jesus could do something with him. In fact, I don't think it was maybe. I think they were like determined that he would do something. Couldn't get in, crack a hole in the roof, lower him down. And Jesus stopped everything. He's like, I don't care about the rest of you, but right now, I'm midpoint. I'm about to land the plane on this amazing message I'm teaching. He just, time out. All right, let's deal with this. And that's what we don't know what he was teaching that day in the house. He set that aside. And like with little kids, this one's close to my heart because I love kids. But when little kids came up to him, he's like, let them interrupt. It's fine. The disciples go bouncer mode on it. Like, get out of here, kid, And Jesus is like, no, come here. They're pulling a little kid around the bouncer. And he just let them come because they matter. He saw them. He let them be seen. One of my favorite examples of this, and it's not even an outright literal thing that the Bible teaches, but it is something I see in the story because I'm absolutely convinced it's true. Jesus fed the 5,000, right? With a chubby kid's lunch. Right? It doesn't say that, but the Bible does say this kid brought a lunch with him, and what was in the lunch? Anybody ever bring 5 loaves of bread for lunch? My mom had packed me 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, 4 pieces of bread. And I was plenty big then. She packed that for me. This kid brings his 5 loaves and 2 fish. Why did Jesus do it that way? He could have been like Domino's right here. He had all the money. He could have bought everybody pizza. Anybody been a youth pastor, right? That's what you do. Youth ministry, pizza. It goes together. Jesus knew that. He could have done pizza for everybody. He could have bring out the quail again. Let's do manna. Let's, whatever. Why did he choose to use this little kid's lunch? I think it was purely for the little kid. It was for the kid. That kid spent the rest of his life knowing God used me. I'm significant. Somebody be telling me, yeah, we were there that day that Jesus fed those 5. All of us, we were so hungry. And then all of a sudden, he just starts breaking this stuff up. That kid stepped up in the middle of that was my lunch. And I gave it all to Jesus. And he's probably thinking when he gave that lunch, man, I'm hungry. Maybe he had 6 loaves and 3 fish. I don't know. And he only gave 5 and 2. I don't know. But Jesus gave that kid significance that day. He said, I can use you. God is saying that to you right now in this place. God is pointing his finger at you, saying, I want to use you. And not in a bad way, like getting used. I'm talking about like, I want to show you a purpose that will fulfill your life. And you will not be fulfilled if you don't do it, but you will be absolutely overflowingly fulfilled if you do. That's what we do with Children's Cup. We give hope to kids by showing them how loved they are. Our team looks them in the eye When's the last time you remember actually consciously thinking, I'm going to look that person in the eye, and you look them in the eye? We do it, and I know I do. When I have a conversation, I'm looking at some of you in the eye right now, and it's getting weird because I'm thinking about it. I'm looking you in the eye. But to consciously, with your spouse, if you're married, I'm telling you, it will change your marriage. If you just, somewhere along the way, not every day, certain same time, but somewhere along the way every day, look her in the eye. Look him in the eye. Just stop everything for 2 seconds and look him in the eye. It communicates value. We show them that they matter. We challenge them to believe that God wants to and can use them to do great things. And that is what you can do for others here, right here in Ralston, Omaha, whatever community you're from. God wants to do that with you here. He wants to use you to show them that they are loved. He wants you to look them in the eyes. Some people have not felt seen in years. Their story has not mattered to anybody in years. We get to be those eyes and ears. We let them know they matter. We help them experience the joy of being a part of what God is doing. I'll wrap up with this. Anybody seen It's a Wonderful Life? I mean, if you're more than 2 years old, you've probably seen it 100 times, right? It's one of those classic Christmas movies, whatever. So I'm not going to retell the story, but George Bailey is this guy who's like, he's all frustrated with life. Once he's standing on a bridge ready to jump off. Maybe he's a pastor, I don't know. It's not funny. He's standing on a bridge ready to jump off, and then this angel, who doesn't have his wings yet, weird theology and all that, don't go there, but he gets assigned to help George Bailey realize his life matters, right? So he jumps in, and then George Bailey saves him out of the water, all this stuff, and goes on this whole journey. And we think the movie's about George Bailey, and probably it is. But I look at the movie now, and I think, this is about Clarence. This is his story. He didn't have his wings yet. He hadn't reached maturity yet in his walk with God, so to speak. That's weird theology again, but he hadn't reached maturity yet. But he fulfilled his purpose by showing George Bailey he's significant. George's life went on. It's great. That's the story we celebrate. You see the end, and he's holding his baby. It's like, oh, this is all great. Everybody's crying. We all cry at the end of the movie. And we hear the little ting, ting of the bells, because that's what happens when angels get their wings. Bad theology again. But we're all kind of happy for Clarence. I'm telling you, that story's about Clarence. We're Clarence. Maybe you feel like George Bailey in this, where you're like, man, my life just doesn't even matter. I want to end it. But I'm telling you, if you put yourself where Clarence is and say, you know what, God's got a purpose for my life. I just need to go do it. And it's to help others. You turn your eyes off of your own miserable situation. And I'm not saying you're miserable. Maybe you feel miserable, though. We've all been miserable at times. The last 3 years, if you made it through without being miserable, then you need to be up here teaching. Because we all need. But our misery is not the end of the story. What we need to do is say, God, I'm going to give you my misery, and I'm going to get about my Father's business. I'm going to go help others. And if we do that, I'm telling you, it changes everything. Your life suddenly has purpose, and you're like, this is the best life ever. God, I'm ready. And here's the deal. When we get to heaven, we're going to find out all the different things that we were able to be a part of, that God used us for. He will. If you live this life saying, God, show me the others and the people that what you want me to help, then you turn it, you'll look back, and you'll see where some of those things you were able to do, and that's fulfilling for you. But heaven will be 100 times because you don't know the ripple effect of all that. So that's what I got. Let me pray for you. God, love you. Thank you for this church. Thank you for what you're doing. Pray for this group as a church. You will continue to use them to reach this community. But I pray for the individuals in here. That God, you'll open their eyes to the others around them and give them the courage to extend themselves, to listen, to hear, to say words of encouragement, to even pray for somebody, and to bless those others around them. In Jesus' name.